Hello and welcome to Getting Cloud Right, a video series dedicated to helping you navigate your path to cloud and IT as a service. I'm your host, Michael Krieger. Joining us today to explore 3 infrastructure as a service best practices is Munir Mubashir, Group Marketing Manager for Cloud and Automation at HP Software. So Munir, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Before we get into it, why don't you tell me a little bit about your role at HP?
Sure, I lead the automation portfolio within Cloud and Automation, so this covers most of the portfolio around automation, database and middleware automation, server configuration management, our compliance solution, as well as the orchestration IT process automation solution. So I would consider that all the building blocks necessary for cloud computing and infrastructure as a service to be successful.
That's a lot of stuff. So
yes.
For many IT organizations, infrastructure as a service is just that natural next step after virtualization. They virtualize their servers, their storage, their networking, whatever. Now they're looking to extend that. Move closer to cloud delivery models. I know a lot of IT organizations are doing it, but there's still a bunch who haven't. And so for them, let me know why this is an important step and what the key benefits are when you make that step.
Sure. So I think that one of the biggest reasons that customers move to cloud and infrastructure as a service is agility. That where they didn't have to wait 4 weeks, 8 weeks, or 10 weeks to get a server, they can get it in relatively short periods of time, hours, or in certain cases, maybe a day, just because of how the processes are set up. So agility is one big reason, and of course there are other ones that are indirect, which is the cost structure and optimization that infrastructure as a service lends itself, higher utilization. But from my experience, the number one reason is it took us 10, 12 weeks to get a server. Now we get it in hours, or we get it in minutes.
Well, you put down a credit card, you get a server, right? I mean, this is the whole thing with shadow IT that I've heard so much about over the past few years. Other than the agility of getting the server, why is it so important to have that speed? And now you've got a server that's not on your premises, as a rule.
Right. So it does boil down to how do we effectively meet the requirements of the business. And I talk about this all the time, and I'm fascinated by this, is that we have disruption everywhere, right? We look around, whether it's retail, whether it is in the technology business, entertainment, there's disruption everywhere. So agility lends itself to how IT can effectively service the business needs, how we can effectively get new capabilities out to the market, and do it without breaking the bank. And I think that's one. And then the second is all about I think it's all about meeting the business requirements of the customer.
So what are the optimal use cases? Why do people go for infrastructure as a service over other cloud offerings?
It's a maturity thing. It really is a function of what can we do, right? What can we do first? So if we take a step back, virtualization made it very easy to get a server.
Right.
So now what happened is you got a lot of virtual machines, and you have them all over the place within the IT organization. But everything is defined within the data center. What cloud gives us, it gives us the concept of what I call borderless data centers. Right. There is no limit. I can reach out and touch HP's data center and get my instances from HP. So this freedom to actually get resources from anywhere and do it at a right cost structure and do it very quickly is it's quite liberating. So that's what cloud gives us, right, beyond the traditional infrastructure, or rather other virtual machines, and that's important. So when I talk about that, it comes back to that great saying, right? With great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
And that's where we have to apply some of the best practices. Don't make it a bureaucracy, but take the lessons learned from what we already know and apply it to cloud computing and cloud computing paradigms.
So that brings me to a great question, and since this is so important to so many people, and a lot of IT organizations, in your opinion, this is the way they have to go, what are some of the common mistakes that organizations are making when they decide to move into an infrastructure as a service environment?
So I think the most important thing is to realize that this is a multi-pronged journey. And that's one. We can start with infrastructure as a service, and there it's also important to realize that we can provision VMs 10 or 50 ways, even if it's on a cloud, right? I can use multiple consoles. I could use storage-based provision. I can actually provision a VM multiple ways. The question is, what do you do next? After a VM gets provisioned in your cloud environment, or you get systems that are available, that's a better way, right? You get your systems up and running. What do you do next? And I think that's where we can apply best practices and lessons learned from our customers who have done it well. So first thing is look at the process. Right? Process still matters. That's one. The second question is about compliance. Right? Compliance is still important. We might debate that there's image-based provisioning. There's a lot of debate about how best to provision, how best to keep them up. But the important thing is compliance has to be implicit, and it can be an afterthought. The question is, how do you make compliance part of the policy, your internal organizational policies as well as regulatory? That's two. And then the third thing, which always comes up, and I always recommend it from lessons learned, is take baby steps and quick wins with the rollout, and not try to boil the ocean at once.
So give me an example of someone trying to boil the ocean. What do they do wrong when they should take smaller steps?
So a perfect example is, and this came from a conversation that I had with a customer a couple of years back. They made they rolled out a cloud and said, we will make middleware and available right at a
So
click.
database,
middleware, and everything was available. But what they quickly realized, that organizationally they were not set up to actually quickly do the handoffs to the database and middleware provisioning teams, and ensure that when a database gets provisioned, a middleware gets provisioned, it actually meets the requirements, the internal requirements that the database and middleware teams have set up, and the SLAs that they've set up across hardening and so on and so forth with the external stakeholders. So great way to get started. I mean, it's a great end result, but not great end result, but the desired outcome is right on. But what they could have done better is actually break it down into steps. Said, step number one, we will give you our cloud will service up your systems, and what you do with it, it's up to you. Phase two, we will introduce the middleware, the database automation. So phase two, when the application owner gets it, he or she gets the complete system. So the lessons learned from there is, it's not just about technology, it's about how do you bring multiple teams together and build a bit of a consensus on how do you effectively make a system available across the full stack.
So you say process and compliance are two of the key parts in a successful infrastructure as a service rollout. What is your advice to organizations in terms of process? What is it that they should be doing to make sure that they're in compliance, that everything is not going to fall apart at the seams? So
first is standardization. And if we look at our enterprise customers, and I say this all the time, provisioning is not a one-time. We've been provisioning systems for centuries, right? Since IT's inception. And there are multiple ways to provision a system depending on who the line of business is, who ordered it, what the requirements are. So first lesson is standardize as much as we can. Make simple, standardized processes with standardized offerings. And this is, I think, one big lesson from external cloud providers. If you go to HP's cloud, there's certain standardized offerings. So that needs to be applied internally as well. So standardize and keep a big picture perspective on the big picture. As I said, from the middleware example, the better way to do it would have been, as I said, look at the end-to-end process and say, phase one, we'll do the infrastructure as a service, make it available. Phase two, we'll do the database middleware automation from scratch. And then we would also tie back to, let's say, change management systems, approval systems, the security systems, and make that as part of the phase rollout as well. So analyze the process, but break it down into chunks.
So one of the things that people talk about when they move to an infrastructure as a service is just getting away from the headaches of having their own technology on premise. One of the big issues is break fix. Does that really go away, though? I mean, there's still things that go wrong, right?
Break fix does not go away, and it really now depends on what part of the application or service do you focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So the model could be, right, there are multiple models that are emerging. One is it's a complete private cloud, and I have my own private cloud. The whole stack now runs on it. Break fix doesn't go away, because now you have to worry about the physical, then you have to worry about the virtual, then you have to worry about the private cloud that sits on it, then you have to worry about the OS, right, and the apps that sit across the whole stack. So you got to manage the whole stack and worry about break fix. Things can go wrong anywhere. So break fix is important. So I like to use this phrase all the time. Laws of physics still exist, even though we have a cloud and we can we can get our assets from anywhere. Laws of physics still apply.
No, they
so
don't.
break
I'm only kidding.
but most of the times they do, and that's one. And second, fundamental. And this is the part I'm amazed by. That we roll out clouds, but our playbooks, our standard operating procedures, our run books are still manual. So break fix is important, but we need to automate the standard operating procedures, automate the boring as well. Because sometimes in technology, we get excited by the cool stuff, cool technology, OpenStack, Swift, but we also have to focus on.
How do you do
standard
that? How do you
operating
automate the
procedure.
run book to enable this kind of fast provisioning, all the things we're talking
Yeah,
about?
so we're good at fast provisioning. We're good at that. Everyone likes to provision systems, and we automate that.
Right.
But the question is, what do you do when break fix happens? When you do when someone gets an alert or someone gets a phone call? In that case, we defer to the manual. Let me open up the standard operating procedures. So one's cultural, make sure that when we roll out our cloud environments that they are standard operating procedures that are automated. And there are multiple technologies that do it. So, plug for our orchestration solution that also has runbook capability, but there are multiple technologies that do it. So it's a technology and a culture. It's merging the two and making sure that it's incorporated in the scope. Because I've seen organizations where it's a bit of an after fact. The fact that the playbooks and standard operating procedures have not been automated, it's just because they don't have the time, because they're working. Everyone's working on the cool, on the cool technologies or rolling out new features. So that has to be part of the project charter.
So everything is a service today. Everything has an AAS at the end. We have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, IT as a service.
Right.
But there's a maturity model. There's a different point in an organization's life when it's going to want to use one of these, and there's a different point in the maturity of each of these technologies. So how does that sync up? When does an organization in its life cycle look to infrastructure as a service? Is it best when they're very young? Is it best for an enterprise that has a lot of established applications? And is this the most mature of the cloud offerings?
So infrastructure as a service, I feel it's the basis, right? If I look at I love Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If we break it down and look at it from the point of view of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, infrastructure as a service is at the base of the base of the pyramid. Okay. So everything sits on top of that, because we do have to meet the requirements. So I keep coming back to these scenarios. Test dev developers are waiting on test systems. Why? Why should they? Because we need to roll out a new feature. I shouldn't have to wait a week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks to test my complete environment.
Right.
So, that's important, right? And this comes back to, that's the agility piece. And the second thing that also the cost structure, numerous examples of folks requesting servers, and I've been guilty of that in the past as well. Said, I need a server, I need a system, but nobody ever returns it.
Right.
Because they know that if I return it, it's gone. It'll take me another 8 weeks or 10 months to get it. So now what happens is we are introducing inefficient cost structures, right, within the IT organization. And one way to fix it is give what the business needs, right? We need environments so we can test things quickly. We need environments because we can roll out or we can scale up, scale down quickly. But we need to do that in a very optimized cost structure, and that's what infrastructure as a service does. It provides the basis of everything else that you can build on. So you could do, you could build your queuing as a service. You could do everything else if you're offering it in house or if you're taking it from external. everything builds on infrastructure as a service.
So what are the big takeaways that you would like to leave with our viewers today regarding infrastructure as a service offering?
The big takeaways are think big, act small, in small steps,
Okay.
right? That's one. And second, compliance has to be implicit, part of the process. Whether it's PCI, whether it's external, any other regulatory policy, or whether your internal hardening, it has to be part of the part of the process as well. And the third is, and I look at this, which is standardization. Standardize your processes and your offerings within the IT organization.
So where do our audience turn to get more information? They want to find out more. What's the next step for them to take?
So we have, HP Helion, right? Our website has, I think, has assets that cover wide spectrum of areas, from infrastructure as a service all the way to how do you build platform as a service, and all the way to different paradigms of application delivery, whether it be 12-step, cloud native, to and hybrid that's built on traditional software. So I personally feel our Helion website's a great resource, and I visit it all the time to keep up with all the great
when
things.
you say 12-step, is that like a 12-step program for
it's
recovering programmers?
It's more about how you how you build your applications natively on that are cloud native.
So cloud native rather than
applications,
as an afterthought.
As an afterthought.
Thanks for joining us on Getting Cloud Right and for sharing your insight on how IT organizations can get the most out of cloud. And as you said, you can go to, is it hp.com/Helion? Is that where they go to get more information? And to learn how HP can help you navigate your journey to the cloud, do visit that, hp.com/Helion. Be sure to check out our next Getting Cloud Right video, in which we examine platform as a service, exactly what it is, when to use it, and how to determine if it's right for your organization. And as always, get updates on future Getting Cloud Right videos by following us on Twitter. Look for the handle @HP Helion Cloud. Thanks again for joining us. For HP, I'm Michael Krieger.